Dole, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay, great. Can you just turn your video on so we can make sure it's working? Perfect. Okay, thank you. So sounds like you've got a pretty strong connection. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, we're going to go ahead and just, you can go ahead and mute and turn off your video for right now. Thank you.
Right. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I've got 6:04. I think Counselor Walderholt will be here in a little bit, we hope. And we've been dealing with a couple of technical problems, so thank you for those of you in the audience for your patience. Okay, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's a regular meeting of the Manchester Springs City Council, February 21st, 2023. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
City Council members Judith Chandler,
Present.
John Shada, Julie Wolf,
Here.
Natalie Johnson.
Here.
Michelle Weatherholt will be arriving shortly, I understand. Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune. Present. And Mayor John Graham.
Present, thank you.
Thank you.
The first item of business is approval of the agenda. And I would like to call to council's attention that this afternoon, this is regarding item G1 under business, the Chamber of Commerce Information Center sign. The Chamber of Commerce asked that the item be pulled from tonight's agenda, that it not be discussed tonight. So I would accept a motion to accept the agenda as published with the removal of item G1, the Chamber of Commerce Information Center sign. Julie?
I didn't want to approve the agenda. I just wanted to say that my computer won't pull up the agenda. Can you tell me how you did it? I can't
yeah,
see it and I didn't memorize it, even though
Right, okay.
I'm sure I have no objections, but it'd
Mr.
be nice to see.
Yeah, Mr. Shadid, if you could help Julie there.
Oh. I move to approve the agenda.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion to second. Okay. As amended. Okay. So the motion is to accept the agenda as published with the removal of item G1, the Chamber of Commerce Information Center sign. Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Six to zero in favor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is public comment on non-agenda items. So if we have anyone here in the audience who would like to speak to an item that's not on the agenda, this would be the time to do it. Do we have anyone? Judy, did you receive anything or any? Okay. All right, so let's push on. Okay, next item is the consent calendar. And I would mention item 4, approval of Candace Craig as an alternate member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Candace is here, so if anyone would like to take that off and give Candace a chance to speak, we could take that off. The consent calendar has 6 items: approval of the February 7, 2023 regular meeting minutes, presentation of warrants for January 2023, notice of reappointment of Marcy Morrison to the Manitou Springs Urban Renewal Authority, on approval of Candace Craig as an alternate member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. 5, approval of funding capital improvements. 6, report on the status of the Manitou Springs Volunteer Firefighters Pension Fund. And I should mention that Marcy Morrison had planned to be here, but she was delayed in Denver because of an appointment up there. So it's council's pleasure. Mr. Shada?
I'd like to remove F5, approval of funding of capital improvements.
Okay, F5 will be handled as a separate item. Okay, and Nancy?
And I'd like to hear from Candace. I don't know if we need to pull it off to hear from her or not, but she's here and I'd love to hear her
Okay,
from
and
her.
it would seem to make sense to give her an opportunity to talk before we vote. So if council has no objection, we would invite Candace Craig to come up. Yeah, if you'd come up and you would press the button on the microphone and it'll go green. And then you want to be about 3 inches away from the microphone when you speak. And if you'll give us your name and address for starters.
Hi, I'm Candace Craig and I live at 23 Crystal Park Road, across from Savelli's and Salida Lindo Townhomes. I'm interested in helping out Parab. I am a former school teacher. I've taught since 1991, all ages, all the way up through college. Mostly English. I'm currently a freelance editor and I tutor in homeschool. So I have some extra time and I've always wanted to get involved in civic matters. And so now seems like a good time that I have a few hours to give. The facilities that I use the most are recreational in Manitou. So I would like to be an alternate for Parab and learn what they do and help out. And some of their projects are kind of personal to me because one of them is the property owned by Cheyenne. What is that called? On Crystal Park Road, Cheyenne Village. And so one of the things they're talking about is turning some of that into open space. So I would be delighted if you would accept me as an alternate. It's a pleasure to be here and it's an honor. Thank you. Do you have any
Great.
questions?
Thank you very much. Yeah, council, any questions or comments for Candace? Okay,
Thank you.
okay, great. Thank you then. Okay, well, council, the motion before us is to approve the consent calendar, items 1 through 4 and item 6. We will handle item 5 as a separate item. So let's go ahead and vote.
Six to zero in favor.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take up the next item. That would be approval of the funding capital improvements. Mr. Shady, you had raised a concern.
So we can get this matter properly before us. I move that we approve this. Do I have a second?
Wait,
Second,
So I'd like to speak to that.
okay, so we have a motion, a second. So discussion.
Yeah. It has come to my attention by listening to the URA board meeting that they have in pretty close to $1 million sitting in their checking account. And had I had known that on Saturday, okay, I would have not been enthusiastic about taking custody of $290,000 of their projects. So I would like to actually change my motion to approve this, but remove those items that were on line 47 and 49, one for holiday lighting, 35,000, 250,000 for streetscape enhancements, and $5,000 for street trees. And I would like to move that we continue to backstop the Soda Springs Park shovel-ready projects that we've already looked at instead. I don't know who seconded that. I don't know if my seconder would agree to that or not.
I have a request. If you, those are two separate things. To take, to ask the URA to go ahead and use their own funds for those three items and reallocate the funds to Soda Springs. So I would respectfully advise or suggest that we take it as two separate items. So that we can have some discussion on what to
Certainly,
do with the money
Let the
separately.
mayor handle that procedurally.
Okay, so, okay, John, I think what would help now is if you could reference the numbers in the spreadsheet so we could all be looking at that when you discuss it. And then I'd like you to walk through your thinking again,
Well,
okay?
we had 3 line items that council had made a notation that we were going to fund from the capital improvements fund. And I believe, and one of them was $35,000 for holiday lighting. One was for $250,000 for streetscape improvements and $5,000 for street trees. Okay. And if Councilwoman Wolf would like me to make that as a separate motion, that we remove those items. So those are no longer funded. Okay. Because I believe the URA has sufficient funds in their account to finish those projects. Okay. And there is no need for general capital improvement money for those. Okay. I believe that they can go ahead with the $1 million that I heard the treasurer on Friday at their board meeting say that they had something like that on hand. So that would be my first proposal if we want to vote on these separately.
I'll second that.
Okay. And okay, I can't get that. I can't get to that. I'm having trouble with my my laptop. I think other people are having that as well. So, okay, so John, what you're proposing here is we had allocated at the request of the URA $35,000 for holiday lighting. Excuse me, $250,000 for streetscape enhancements and $5,000 for street trees. So basically $290,000. Yeah,
That's right.
$290,000. So your motion then was to put those in reserve or?
Yes,
Okay.
for the first part of this motion is to put that 290 back into the amount of unassigned funds. Okay,
Okay,
pending my second motion.
okay, so that's
Does
your
my
motion.
seconder agree with that?
No, I mean, I'd like to withdraw my second. Can I do that? How do I do that?
Yeah, you can withdraw it. Okay, so John, you've made a motion. Okay, the motion to withhold $290,000 from the line items that we talked about the previous Saturday. And that would just be, the motion now is just to keep that in reserve. We still have to decide what to do with it.
That's right.
That's your motion, okay?
That's right. Do I have a second?
Do we have a second? Okay, seconded by Counselor Wolf. Okay, discussion.
Well, I guess I want to just underscore that the information that was publicly, okay, on the URA's meeting on Friday said that they had something short of $1 million sitting in their checking account. And it seems like to me And it seems like I'm getting a head shake from our finance officer that that's roughly true. Is that correct?
I was just nodding that I understood what you were saying.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, all right, okay, I'm
Didn't-
just, all right, thank you. I thought maybe you were corroborating what I had heard. So I think that they can go ahead and finish those projects from the funds they have on hand. Okay, and so therefore, I think there are other shovel-ready projects ready, okay, that we discussed on Saturday that are deserving of this money.
Nancy?
Yes, as might be expected, I certainly disagree with this motion. The 250K would pay for the design for the 24 right-hand turn shut off. CDOT has already approved it. Dole was already working on it with URA. And the URA is no longer planning on it. Their budget no longer includes it. So because city council was going to pick it up. So I just don't, I'm not appreciative of rehashing what we accomplished at our budget retreat. So I am hoping that council would not approve this motion.
And would the city clerk please note that Councilor Wilderholt joined us at approximately 6:19 p.m. Okay. We have other
Since
comments?
Councilor Weatherholtz has just arrived and she's going to be voting on this, I guess I'd like to reiterate my apologetics since she hadn't maybe heard the reason why I was doing this.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
So the reason why I'm suggesting that we pull these items and that they not be funded out of the city's unassigned
I think
fund
you need to
balance.
tell Michelle which items you're talking about. You need to take it from the top.
Okay. Is we had allocated, Michelle, $290,000 out of the city's unassigned fund balance for the URA for holiday lighting, streetscape enhancements, and street trees. It's come to my attention that the URA has about $1 million, according to their treasurer, of funds on hand. And I believe that they can go ahead and fund these projects with their funds without our help. Okay. And my second part of my proposal was that these funds be reassigned to the Soda Springs Park project so that we can finish that project this summer.
Michelle, just to let you know, we had gone ahead and we approved the consent calendar with the exception of item 5, which we're now discussing separately. That's approval of funding of capital improvements. So, okay, that helps you get oriented just a little bit. So the motion right now is just to withhold the $290,000. It doesn't determine what, doesn't declare where that money would go.
Correct.
Natalie?
I mean, I feel like since there's no one from the URA here to explain, I do know that they were going to fund like ADA bathrooms in the park and things like that. And I don't know if those funds have already been distributed or, you know, what has been dedicated already to city projects that just haven't been allocated yet. And so I wasn't in that meeting, unfortunately, and I didn't look at their budget. So I'm just unclear as to what of that million is actually not already going toward a project that just hasn't been paid yet. And so that's, I guess, just my concern about this motion, that I feel uninformed.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? And I guess, okay, Julie? I guess my thought would be, I'm a little surprised to hear that the URA has $1 million. I'd like to have that confirmed before we make any permanent decisions. My understanding was they had about $400,000, maybe a little less. So I'd like to confirm that. I don't have a problem with setting that money aside and holding on to it until we've checked the facts. If we do that, and we feel that they do have sufficient funds, say the $1 million, at that point, I'd be willing to entertain, a different thought as to what to do with that money. But I think we give the URA a chance to respond and see if they really do have $1 million. I don't doubt you, John, but I'm confused. Okay, and I think a little time would give us a chance to clear that up. Julie?
I was going to say about the same thing. I would suggest that Nancy calls it rehashing the issue. And to me, rehashing is when we're talking about the same arguments and the same facts. These are new facts to me too. Had I known that the URA had all that money, I would be interested to know how much, if any of it, was already contractually obligated. And so I would suggest that we approve the motion that's on the table, set aside those dollars, and obviously we can reconsider whether to reallocate those funds after the URA comes back, should they wish to do so, and talk to us about their proposed budget and so forth. That would be fine with me. I think we have enough wiggle room that we can take care of giving some or all of that back if need be at some point in the future. We're persuaded that that makes sense, but in order to move forward and get our budget approved, I would suggest that we go ahead and approve the motion, reconsider it later as to where the URA stands and if we want to give them any money additional.
Okay, thank you. And I will mention that the URA had asked to meet with council to discuss funding, and they're on the agenda for a work session on April 11th. So, and part of that was to allow council the opportunity to work through, basically the exercise of February the 11th, that last Saturday when we had our drill. So I don't see any harm in waiting and getting the facts together and setting the $290,000 aside until we figure out what the picture really is with URA. Anyone else? Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second. And John, I'm going to ask you just to restate that again, just for everybody's clarification.
Yes, that what we're voting on here is removing from line 47, $35,000 from holiday lighting that the city was going to take on out of the unassigned fund balance, 250,000 that we had approved in our discussions in the Saturday session for street enhancements, which was line 48, and line 49 was $5,000 for street trees. So as I understand the motion, these are to take these $290,000 and put them back into the unassigned fund, into the unassigned capital funds that we had agreed to previously.
Good, thank you. The secretary is good with that? Okay. And Nancy?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that it was my understanding that we were taking these back into the city as part of city's priorities, that they were taken instead of the URA. So does that mean that anything that happens to be in that geographic area, we're just going to say the URA has to do it no matter what it is? I mean, this is a safety issue. The 24 exchange in particular is a safety issue. And I just think it's a critical city priority, not just a URA priority. So I just see it as a difference, changing what we had agreed to a week ago Saturday, or 2 weeks ago Saturday, whenever it was. So the implication is that anything required in the URA geographic area, the city just won't take into consideration as a city priority.
That's not my motion. It's on these particular three items.
No, I
And
understand that.
And I believe that the URA has $1 million in funds that they can go ahead and finish these projects. These were on their list of things to do and have been for years. And you can go out and look at their budget year after year after year. These suddenly appeared on our plate. And I'm suggesting that we did not have that information. And if you go out on the city website, there is nothing out there on the URA in terms of posting their minutes, their agendas. It is vacant out there.
My question is that my understanding is that when we took the sales tax from the URA, that we had agreed that we would consider the projects in association with all of the city's priorities. We did that. We concluded that those three fit into the city's priorities and would be accepted. So now we're saying we're saying something different. That's what I'm concerned about, is it seems like we're changing our tune. And I do consider particularly the 24 interchange to be a city priority, not just a URA priority.
Julie?
I think a lot of the URA priorities overlap with the city priorities. We wouldn't bother to do the updated planning and land use code which affects in large part that part of the city, if that wasn't going to affect the whole city. So whether we have, really high rise apartment buildings there, or what we have there, or the tax revenue to be generated from that part of town, or any of these things, the beautification of what it looks like when people first pull into town from the East End for our visitors and our tourists, all of that affects the whole city. It's not just that the street lights or this, or the intersection of the highway only affect, everything that they're involved with affects the whole city. So the fact that that the URA is working on making a safer exit and entrance for the highway there affects the whole city, and that's why we should pay for it, then we should just dismantle the URA, because everything they do affects the whole city. So I don't think that's a valid, persuasive argument to me.
Okay, I guess one of the things that, is a driving concern behind this question is how much money does URA really have? Because again, I thought it was $400,000. Mr. Shady, you say it's $1 million. That's a fairly big discrepancy, and I think we can figure it out. I don't see that that it's that insurmountable. So I'm okay with the motion. Really, but
So for clarification, the motion is to remove it or to put it into hiatus until we get more information.
well, in effect, okay, so the motion is to put the money, $290,000, we put allocated to 3 line items, to put that essentially back into the unassigned general fund reserves. So we still have the money there. It's money in the bank. We just need to decide, based on the motion, we just need to decide what to do. And I think what the question behind is, how much money does URA really have, and what can they really achieve? I hope that helps. Julie?
So I'm assuming that should we come back in April after hearing from the URA about their budget and their contractual obligations that they already have, at that time, if we decide to not give the money back or only give part of it back, I assume we could also simultaneously at that time decide what else we would want to do with that money, if anything. That, in other words, that those two subjects could come up together so that people could
Well, I think
prioritize.
there'd be a sequence of the 2 items, but I think they could be done one right after the other.
And that way we can prioritize based on all the updated information from URA.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would think so, and we'd have it by then. Any further discussion? If not, let's vote.
Counselor Chandler, if I can get your vote. Okay, and we have 6-1 in favor, with the 1 no vote being Mayor Pro Tem Fortune.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, then I'd like to approve the capital funding project list minus those items that we previously removed.
I'll second.
Seconded by Counselor Chandler. Any further discussion? All right, the motion is to approve the listing that we came up with a week ago Saturday, minus the $290,000 that we've just talked about, and that'll be set aside into unassigned reserves.
For the 2002-3 budget.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Seven to 0 in favor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and that takes us to item G2, the Creek Walk Trail Phase 3 construction contract. And we're going to be briefed on that by City Engineer Dole Grabenick, and he is remote. So thank you. Thank you, Becca. Okay, Dole, you have the floor.
Great. Good evening, council. And then Becca, are you able to pull up the presentation? I said Becca. Awesome. Thank you. I hope everybody can hear me okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Dole.
All right. Well, if we go to the next slide, please. So let me back up. I'm here to follow up. This is a 60 days from when we presented this contract back in December. And this is where we were wanting to present the concrete trail. The request at that council meeting was to research more porous pavements and some other changes to the contract. And so this should reflect those changes. So the first thing here of the items that are available for porous pavement are landscape pavers. And I include a picture here. You guys are all familiar with this. They have several pros. They are impermeable. They are very attractive, lots of tech options, and ADA compliant. And then some of the downsides, the cons, are they are expensive. They're about twice as expensive once they're installed as a concrete walkway. They can be bumpy and uneven for small wheels, strollers, skateboards, things like that. Maintenance can be intensive as they settle and shift. It's hard to make those perfectly level. And then over time, if these permeable surfaces are near an area that has the opportunity for surface runoff, which of course the Creek Walk Trail does, then over time, the silt and sand will fill in the joints and cracks and reduce the permeability. Okay, next slide, please. So in this research, anything was an option. We found a product, and this product is called TruGrid. And I don't know if Roy has that sample or example there, but we contacted the company and they sent us a free sample. And this product is under the umbrella of a GeoCell. And so basically it's a plastic sheet of material that locks in place. It's real easy to build. It gets installed fast. And then you basically install aggregate, uniformly crushed aggregate over and into this material. And so the aggregate is kind of the wear surface, and then the GeoCell keeps it structurally sound so you don't get rutting, the rock doesn't shift. And so to go through it, the benefit of this is that it's permeable. It allows a significant amount of water through, does not create runoff. You get to choose the color of the finished surface. Now, obviously thanks, Roy. Obviously the TruGrid itself is black, but you can have a little bit of control over the color by what color of rock that you want to use. It is ADA compliant, the material, and it's a fairly straightforward installation. It doesn't require a lot of know-how or complications, and installed, it's very similar in price to concrete. Now, the downsides of something like this is that it can be very bumpy or uneven for small wheels. So if you think strollers, scooters, skateboards, small wheeled, hard wheels type thing will have a very bumpy, rough, uneven experience on this. Large wheels, large rubber wheels like cars do just fine. Probably bicycles do just fine, but any kind of small, hard wheel will feel all the vibration of something like this. Most of the installations we found for this product generally involve parking lots and staging areas type thing where you want permeability. People don't want asphalt, but they need the structure and rigidity of the rock and the structure of the GeoCell. And then also over time, now it can take a little while because it's so porous, is that grit, sand, silt, again, from adjacent areas will wash onto this and will slowly over time fill in the voids of the aggregate. Now it would take quite a bit, I think, to really cause it to become impermeable. And then depending upon the size of the aggregate you use, it could get muddy because you could get silt and sand to the top. And so, you know, one of the nice things about walking on hard surfaces is generally you don't get muddy when it's wet. And then the other thing in here, and this is a good example, this picture is snow removal. So when you plow this, you're supposed to keep the plow blade about 1/2 inch above the rock. And you kind of just scrape that as thin as you can without disturbing the rock. Now, this product actually melts faster than concrete because the air is able to circulate through the rock and allows the ice to drain. And so you actually get a surface that melts a little bit faster, like I said, than concrete. And I think that was all I want to say about that one. Okay, next slide, please. So I don't need to talk too much about concrete. We're pretty much familiar with it. It's very cost effective. It's low maintenance. It's a very consistent, reliable surface. The downside for some of this direction is that this concrete, as we know, is very impermeable. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm just kind of summarizing things here to kind of help clarify. I didn't yet talk about schedule, but I will now. So landscape pavers would increase the cost of the project by about $120,000. And that's assuming we choose a very straightforward, simple paver. If they get bigger or more textured, they get more expensive. Now, I did talk to CDOT about if we were to change the scope of the project from a concrete bikeway or multi-use trail, what would that do? And we would basically need to re-advertise the project with either pavers or with a geocell type product. And if the council does choose to go with concrete, then we actually could get the contract approved potentially tonight and then get started on construction as soon as we can get all the approvals from CDOT and the contracts fully signed. Okay, next slide, please. Questions? I kind of went fast. I apologize, but I welcome any questions you may have.
Council, do we have questions? Julie?
Well, this is a comment, but when you go to the True Grit website, the pictures of what this looks like are much more appealing than the one you chose for your slide. Looks like horrible. So I just wanted to mention that to people. If anyone's kind of grossed out by the way it looks on the presentation, go to the True Grid website and they have some very nice pictures of what it looks like, which looks a whole lot different. But my question is, or maybe another comment, under concrete, the only con that you put down there was that it's impermeable, but it sounds like you're saying the other con is that it stays icy for a long time compared to a product like the True Grid or what you call the GeoCell products. Is that correct?
So you had two comments. The first one about the aesthetic of the product. Some of the pictures, this product can be used to, you can backfill it with soil and actually plant grass seed. So you can get a grassy surface that can hold up to heavier use better. So that's why some of those pictures on the website are prettier. And then the second comment is, yes, that's true. I mean, that would apply to all of our concrete walkways and all of our concrete sidewalks. Yes.
And also just there's really pretty pictures of the product that you showed us here or that Roy passed around to see what it looks like when it's done. It's right on their homepage. It's not the one with grass. That's a separate picture. And it looks really nice and it looks a hell of a lot nicer than what they had on the slide. So don't think the slideshow is the way it has to look, but that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Other counselors, questions or comments? Judith?
Thank you, Joel. I'm real familiar with this product, thanks to you bringing it to my attention. It's my understanding that this product lasts up to 60 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, on the website, it said 35 to 60 years on the website, but I think Dole, you said maybe 45 to 50 is probably average.
Yes. And it depends on how much direct UV exposure it gets. It depends on how covered it is. But I'd say it's a 50-year design life. Yes.
I have two more questions, Mayor, if I might ask.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you know how much faster the snow melts? Do you have any idea to give us about that?
That's a good question. I don't.
And then if we were to move ahead with either product and we're looking at a 2-month delay, if we don't delay and we go with concrete, what are we looking at a potential project end date versus if we go with the geocell?
That's a good question. So I think that we would probably be able to issue the notice to proceed. So what we have to do is we have to get the contract signed, and then we have to send it to CDOT for their concurrence, and they have to see the bid tabs, and they have to review the contract and the specifications, and then they issue us a notice to proceed. They actually issue a notice to award, and then the city of Manitou will issue the notice to proceed. I could see that happening in about 3 weeks. And I haven't asked the contractor recently when he could start, but he seems anxious to start. So I could see us whether starting this project in late March. And if I can say one more thing, I forgot one of the features of the TruGrid is you guys saw that little yellow bubble looking thing. You can pop those little bubbles in different colors. And so, specific for like parking lots, you could use those yellow delineator buttons to designate the parking stalls, and then you never have to restripe the parking lot. You always have those yellow permanent markers there. That's also a pretty neat feature of that product. So I forgot to mention that.
Judith, did you have another question?
Yeah, just a few. So I'm so happy to see that in the original contract from December that was presented to us, 15 trees were slated to come out. And after walking the project, anticipate no trees will come out. So that's great. And that the bridge will stay intact. That's awesome. It looks like there's a potential savings of around $12,000 from the trees remaining, which is awesome. My question to you is, when we walked the project, we talked about possibly cleaning up the back of the chamber where the drainage just goes right in the back and freezes, that this would also potentially be a good area to put that geocell down there because it's really dangerous back there when it freezes. So just wasn't sure if that was part of this. I've had nothing but trouble with my computer today, so I haven't seen that. And my last question is when we walked the project, that split rail fence area where it was right behind the chamber, where between the chamber and the house that's on Mayfair.
Yes.
That we talked about the fence being replaced, but we also talked about leaving that area that belongs to the city as undisturbed habitat for the deer. Is that going to remain so?
Let me answer your questions in reverse. So right now the plans call out for that split rail fence to be removed, and then that area untouched. There's currently not a plan to put any kind of split rail fence back. It's just to remove that, many of those fence areas are broken, leaning over. So it's just to clean it all up and get it all out of there. And then that's it for the area. And then your question, I think that so my plan, and I thought I put this in the memo, is to bury so speaking of behind the chamber, I think that's an excellent location. The plans were already going to redo that area. The project was already planning to redo and remove the asphalt. So I think putting down this TruGrid behind the chamber building, burying the downspouts and getting that out of there, and then kind of having that might be the worst case scenario icing location we have, because you're near a creek, so the water's colder. It's 100% shaded. It gets wet because the downspouts. I think that could be an excellent test for this product. And this product is ADA compliant. And so anyone that's using the wooden pedestrian bridge can obviously get around there, and hopefully they can get around there with a lot less ice to have to deal with if that GeoGrid does get installed there. So my intention is to absolutely put this product down there behind the chamber as a little test of this product as well.
Mayor, can I ask that we can take a look at that product? I've never had a hands-on.
Okay.
If
Yeah, go ahead and we'll take another look at it for anybody who wants to see it. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions or comments? John?
To me, I think this is attractive for some special situations I have a question for Dole, though. Dole, how easy is it, do you think, if this product needs to be pulled up because there's maintenance issues in and around it? Somebody has to get to utilities underneath it or whatever.
That's
In
a,
other words- Thank you.
yes, that's a great question. From what I understand, you just pull the plastic up. You have to unhook it from its, adjoining pieces. Now, when you do that, the aggregate would then mix with the dirt underneath it, and it would get dirty and muddy. So you'd probably need to dispose or bury that dirt and bring in, not dirt. You would need to probably dispose of that aggregate and then bring in new aggregate. But for the most part, it seems to be pretty easy to access and maintain in that regard. As you can see, it's not very thick. It's not very heavy. It doesn't take too much heavy equipment to utilize. It is fairly expensive for what it is, but it seems to be a pretty good product.
To me, I guess my comment, Mr. Mayor, is that I think for just the continuity of what we already have going with the creek path, I guess I'm somewhat hesitant to experiment with this material, in that area. I think, that muddy area that we have in Hiawatha, I think might be a great test place, because if it doesn't work back there, seems like to me we could pick it up and try it and use it in other little small areas. But it just seems like to me, from the continuity of the Creek Path Trail, I think we ought to use the same color and the same material that we already have back there. I think that signals to people. I think it gives a good multi-use surface. And I realized that there are pictures on their website. I did look at their website before coming to the meeting, and, this New River Gorge, National Park ADA compliant trail and whatnot looks very nice, but it doesn't show me essentially some of the grading issues that I think we have back there in terms of what's going on. It's not a total, these surfaces they're showing are very flat. It also seems like to me, this has a lot of experience in parking lots and places like that. But I think for the different kind of wheeled vehicles that we have, I think we ought to stick with what's tried and true and what we know works back there. And I agree with Dole that if we want to experiment with it in little particular areas, because it gives us some more drainage or, melting or whatever, we can figure out whether that works or not. And a small little pilot with it might be appropriate. The other thing I wanted to ask about is, I just wanted to confirm that the new bridge is not in the current plan, correct? You're shaking your head. What's that mean? It is or it isn't?
It is not in the new plan. There's no bridge work. There's no removal. There's no new bridge. We did make the picnic table ADA compliant as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Just wanted to confirm with that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Shada. Natalie?
Sure. I'm going to agree with Counselor Shada. I just believe that the technology that is available for what we need, which includes, again, those sort of roller skates and strollers, and if we are going to have this be a true urban, non-motorized road for the community, I think that we are going to have to go with the concrete. But I also, encourage Dole to continue to be aware of new technologies as they become available, because I think this is a place where a lot's going to be coming forward in the next few years, and I would like us to stay on top of it.
Thank you, Natalie. Judith?
I'm actually going to agree with Counselor Shada and Johnson on this one. We got a tremendous win on this with the 15 trees remaining, the bridge remaining, and using this product, which is it is a recycled product. Just want to let you know too. We're not putting new plastic down behind the chamber and cleaning that all up, to me is a big win. And I want to really thank Dole for all of his time, research, and this presentation. Really kudos to you, Dole. Appreciate that. I think that this product has tremendous applications, say at Hiawatha, other places in town. We're actually going to do our entire driveway with it because we like the fact that the snow melts. But I am willing, mainly because I don't want this project held up for another 2 months. We already looked into this for 60 days, and I think we got what we needed to get out of it. I got what I certainly needed to get out of it. So I am willing to go with concrete on this phase. I would say in future projects, I think we need to we need to walk these projects and take a look at things and really put them under the microscope as we continue the future phases of the creek walk.
Thank you. And I think I've walked the creek walk probably about 4 times in the last 2 weeks, and I walk it fairly routinely. And I notice a lot of people with strollers. I mean, there's a lot of people that use this, all kinds of folks. There's walkers, bicyclists, people walking their dogs, and a lot of people with kids. And it kind of surprised me how many people I see pushing a stroller, and they'll be coming up from Fields Park to the swimming pool, and then it kind of filters out. So it tells me that the concrete is a better surface for strollers. I ride a bike, and I think the concrete's it's a lot more comfortable for a bike ride. If I was in a wheelchair, and I suppose that day is going to come, I would like to, I think I'd rather have a nice hard concrete surface. So my 2 cents would be to go with the concrete. Thank you. Anybody else? Sounds like we've discussed this. Would someone like to make a motion? Approval, Daniel Key. And John, you're going with concrete.
Yes, I move approval of the concrete and the contract.
Approval of the concrete,
With the contract.
with contract. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
And that would let us move pretty quickly.
I'll second.
Okay, motion a second. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Seven to 0 in favor.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Time to do a creek walk. Okay, thank you. Thank you,
I'll get
Dole.
it done. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay. All right, and that brings us to council correspondence. So I think counselors, you all probably have a couple sheets of paper stapled together at your seat on your desk. This is in reference to the Colorado Municipal League annual conference in June. So Judy has asked that we respond to this and get our answers back to Lisa. Judy, would you like to go into more detail as to how you want this done?
Well, I would say if anyone has those filled out tonight before you leave, then bring them to me. I would say if you don't have them filled out by tonight and you want to take them home and do some research, you would either they need to get back to Lisa, and you can either drop them with me in my office or take them back to Lisa. So.
Okay, great, thank you. That was all I had, Mr. Shada.
In case people aren't familiar with this, this Gaylord Center is basically like going to DIA. You can basically almost see it from the end of the runway. So that's where it is in Aurora. Physically.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I haven't read through this. The Gaylord, there was some criticism about this in various emails saying that this was an expensive place, but I see there's a discount there, so I'll leave you all to think about that. Sorry, who else has anything? Else correspondence? Natalie, then Julie.
So I received an email from Sienna Mann with the Colorado Immigrants' Rights Coalition, and she is approaching cities around local rent control. And apparently there's a current state ban on rent control, and the governor has requested that these folks reach out to cities to see if they would be willing to consider having the opportunity to decide if they personally want rent control options for their cities. And so they're trying to collect signatures, if any of this makes any sense. But she reached out to me, and she's got a link here for local elected officials to sign. And so I don't know if this is something that you all would like me to share with you, if this is something that we're not interested in considering. I don't know a lot about rent control. I feel like that's something that happens on TV, not in real life, but I don't know where we're headed with affordable housing. So I think it's something to consider, but this would literally be eliminating the ban, not approving rent control.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys want me to, should I share it or I don't know what to do? with this.
Okay.
Comment on
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem asked to have it. Why don't you send it to everybody? And if we don't want to
Yeah, I
read.
don't think
we'll
we should
respond.
take a position unless we have a position as a group. I mean, I suppose someone could say, you know, my name is so-and-so. I happen to be on the Manitou Springs City Council, but I want you to be perfectly clear that the city council is not taking a position on this at this time. We have not done so, but as just somebody who happens to live here, my position is yes or no. I mean, but I just would be nervous about creating a false impression that any of us responding or doing so in our profession, you know, official capacity.
I would agree with that. That's why I haven't done anything,
Okay.
but
Thank you.
so just share it.
All righty, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any harm in sharing it, and counselors can do what they individually want to do. I think this is also being discussed at the State House, and Mark Snyder, I talked to Mark Snyder the other day, and he said he would like to come and give us a briefing on what's going on in legislative issues in mid-March. Now, we haven't put that on an agenda or anything, but if council thinks that's a good idea, Mark kind of wanted to give us a heads up as to things that might be affecting us. So I see heads nodding, so we'll go ahead and try to get Mark in here. Excuse me, Nancy.
And sorry, it just pertains to this topic. Denise and I went to the CML legislative update last week in Denver and got a chance to talk with our senator representative, Mr. Gardner, or Senator Gardner. And we also extended an invitation to him to do something similar with Mark. Whether he'll take us up on it, I don't know, but perhaps it'd be worth you asking him if he could come at the same time Mark is here, and
Okay, all
just
righty.
a suggestion.
Okay, sure. Alrighty, thank you. Julie, did you have something?
Yeah, I just have a quickie. I noticed that the road, Park Avenue from the post office all the way down to the west end of Soda Springs Park has quite a few really large, what look like holes in the road. It's not even I don't know if it's a pothole, but it just almost looks like quite deep holes, and they tend to be on the side of the road, which is where bicyclists and other mobility people will be traveling, not on the sidewalk there, which is so narrow anyway. And so it really is quite hazardous, I think. I know that we have a lot of competing projects, but I would suggest, especially with the visibility of that being part of our main part of downtown, that be attended to. That would be my request.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from council? Okay, I guess not. Mr. Cheney, City Administrator's report.
Yeah, so just with the potholes on Park, we'll take a look at those, but that one seems to get a lot of potholes. And then asphalt right now is not possible because of the temperatures. The manufacturing plants are not open. So, but we can see what we can do to try to make it safer for now, and then we'll redo them when we get the chance in April, May.
Yeah, even if we have those horrible looking orange cones everywhere so that we don't get sued for causing a serious injury.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate it. And the only two things I have is that the light on the west end of town, the traffic light, or not traffic light, but the street light that was knocked down is supposed to be replaced by the week of February 20th. So CSU is taking care of that. And another snowstorm's coming in tonight or tomorrow, early tomorrow morning. So crews are ready to take care of the snow first thing in the morning. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And I guess something I'd forgotten about is the item, I think it was G1, it was the Chamber of Commerce sign. I think the chamber withdrew. I think they felt that it wasn't worth discussing tonight. And I think maybe based on Mr. Parker's email, does council want to, bring that topic up at a work session, or we just want to? So Julie, you don't want to? Natalie, you're not interested? You are, okay. John? Okay, so 2 no's, okay.
definitely interested. Yeah. I
Okay,
think
so we're
it's
2 and
essential.
2. Judith? No? Michelle?
I'm interested.
Okay, so we're about, I guess I'm the deciding vote. You know, and I kind of hate to, I kind of feel like we're going down a rabbit hole that there's really nothing we're going to gain by this. Let's sleep on this one, okay? If we want to do it at a future date, we can do that. Let's do it that. Okay, motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
Okay. Okay, we have plenty of motions. We should vote just as a formality here, I guess.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I get your vote, please? Thank you. Oh, I missed one, Counselor Wolf's as well, but it's 6-0. I know I've already hit the button, so sorry about that. Okay. 7-0 in favor.
Okay, an easy evening. Thank you all.